everybody, Tim Higgins here. So I thought I'd do a quick video, and I'm hoping this is very quick. I was going to build this in front of you all, but I really don't think you want me to because there's a lot of information here. But what we're doing is we're going to look at the TDM log files and convert them to a CEF file. Now, if you don't know what a CEF file, then this video probably isn't any good for you. But the idea is hopefully you can pick up some of it based off how the TDM logs are. Now, a CEF file is a standard file format that a lot of companies use and things like that. What we want to do, though, is I'm going to walk you through the code that I wrote, and hopefully this will help. Now, the one thing I do is I start with reading the files in the log files, okay? And I'm going to split those so I can get just the name, and we're going to pass that to our to this method right here. We'll see in a few seconds. This is a format. Cisco has one, yada, yada, yada. Microsoft has one. A lot of people have them. But let's just go ahead and see how I run this. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to pass in the file name and the log line. So there's other ways you can do this. You could use Python generators for this. I did not. I just kind of went through it, but that's okay. So the pattern I'm looking for is info. Theoretically, you'd probably be looking for a debug because that's what you care most about. And then what I'm doing is I'm splitting at the end of each line. I probably don't need that. That's just for testing. So let's go ahead and take that out for now. And this is the format of a TDM log file. Now, I copied some logs over here just to make it stupid simple. And we'll open up this one right here to look at it. I don't know if you can see this. It's kind of small, but it's date. And let me get to here. So what we have is we have date and time, our log level, which is pretty common sense, the thread name, okay, which is here. And then there's this user method and API. It says P, but it's API. And then the rest of it I took as the message, okay? And that's what I got from Broadcom. So I took it apart here by saying date and time, log level, thread. If there is user method and API, I find that's not really the case. You'll see how I handled that here in a few minutes. And then, of course, the message. So let's go ahead and close this. So what I do is I do want to get the file name. So I treated everything as a dictionary. So think of this debug string holder. This is a very bad naming condition, but I did this very quickly. So I just created a dictionary and I assigned it the file name. On the date, I kind of split because I split on the spaces, right? So it would be in an array. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. So every bit of this file in my string splits, if you go look, I use a lot of regex for all this, okay? So hopefully you know regex. If you're not, then use Google. It would definitely help you. But what I did, I said split my pattern, which is split on spaces, okay? So for an example, that's a space. Well, that's a space, right? It looks better if you see the file, but it ends up splitting it out like this. You got to be careful because there's actually a space right here, so I'd account for that as well. So file name splits. I have my date, which is date, time, and the UTC. My log level is next. If you notice, I strip out the brackets if they exist because I want just the name. Realistically, you only get the first bracket because the second one is a space. So if you notice 0, 1, 2, 3, I skipped 4 because my 4 is my bracket, my closed bracket, because of this space that is right after info. Now, if they ever fix that, it's going to break this code, but that's an easy find and fix. So again, 5 is threat name. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing there. And then the threat name, I'm actually removing, do I have duplicates there? I think I do. Oh, no, I tested the name. So I wrote the name out first just as a test so that realistically we don't need this either. See, I'm kind of refactoring as I go through here. And then the threat name. Now, the hard part gets kind of tricky. So there is this thing called split 7, and that's these right here, okay? Because they're on top of each other if you look here. So what I had to do was split those again based off of the two brackets, okay? So there's bracket 1 and a bracket 2, and then what I do is I split that into 3s, 1, 2, and 3, right? So we'll go back up, 1, 2, 3. So user is, I tell it to replace that with nothing. There's probably an easier way of doing this, but I truly just wrote this probably in a few hours, at least this piece. So 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, and 2, because it's array based, so 0. That would be user, method, and API. And again, it's right here, user, method, API, and it's right here. And if you want to see what it looks like as an actual file, again, I apologize, I don't know how to zoom into this. If I do, I would. But what we're looking at is user right here. So user, administrator, post, and then the API. Okay. Now that kind of split that out for me there. And then I put that into another, well, there. And then the 9 : says, give me the 9th array and everything after it. And I'm going to join that off my splits, and that becomes my message. Okay. That's kind of how that works. This print is just to let me know that I've got through this phase. Not a big deal. Truthfully, I'd probably go back and add real logging and things like that. But then I call the header. So now that we have this dictionary, I then call this header. So if we go to it, let's go to implementation. The header is to build the header file. And here's an example for, excuse me. Here's an example for Cisco, right? So what I did was version is 0, device is, vendor is Broadcom, device is TDM. Version, you probably could put TDM's version in there, but I didn't. A lot of this information, I don't really know what it's going to be, right? So device class ID, but hopefully it's something if you could use, then you can do it. The whole idea is I pass in the dictionary and then I copy that dictionary and then I add more fields to that dictionary or more key values. In the name, I actually concatenate the file name so I know what it is and underscore the thread name. Because if I just did the thread name, it wouldn't help me, right? So this is the thread name. But now I can say, oh, look at this file and that thread name. So that would kind of help me there. At least it'd give me a starting point. Severity, I made everything a high, but this is the default. And you can make it whatever you want. I made everything high because when I was testing, I did debug. When you do info, you might want to make this lower. And then what I do from there is then I go work on the body part. So let's go look at it. So again, I copied the dictionary. Now this is going to be the dictionary of what we just added plus this, plus the previous. So it's the 2 other methods that executed. And in here, there's a lot of stuff that gets added to the body. The only thing I do here is I add an API, I add a user, I add a method, and then I add the message. And then from there, I load the build string. So let's go here. And then all I do here, this gets kind of tricky, so I don't need this anymore. But what this is going to do is in my source name, now you can change this by all means because this is just a dictionary. I have to check to make sure that that even exists. So that's the API. So I use the get off the dictionary and to the API. That's if that is found in the keys, because not everything has the username, method, and API. So I do that for the username, the method, and the API. So user, API, method, doesn't matter what order they go in. And then also check to see if those fields are blank, because even though they're there, that doesn't mean they have data, right? So the one example I showed you a few minutes ago, it was actually didn't have data. So I had to be careful with that. I was going to see if I saw it. Yeah, right here. So these are empty anyway, right? So not everything has valid data. So once that's there, then I build the string. And this is pretty elementary. Every developer should know how to do this. But what I do is I get the date, and then I get the file name, which we built, and I hard-coded that, so I didn't really need to put it in the dictionary in the other one, but that's okay. I did that in case you wanted to dynamically change some of this. And then, of course, like I said, the name here, severity, my user API. So if the user and API is there, it's going to say user API and method because you're not going to know what that is if you don't. And then at the end, I get the message. And then from there, I just write it out to a file. This is hard coded. Of course, you're not going to want to hard code this, but let's see what it looks like. So if I go in here and look, I looked at one simple one just to show you, but this is an actual copy of my TDM log file. We're going to go through all this and you'll see how fast it is. So we're just going to run it. And just like that, we're done. So what did I do? I created a CEF file format with that information. Again, I apologize. You probably can't see this very well, but, date, this is the file name, right? And then the CEF, Broadcom, file name is here minus the method, right? and then severity is high, username is none, and none of my methods. And then the message, if I go down here, there's a place where you can actually see the username. And wow, this is like staring at moving grass with that black and white, right? Oh, here we go. So these actually have, nope, still no usernames. Trust me, it's in there. You'd have to find it. But the cool thing is it is actually, oh, here we go. Administrator, here's the API, and the method is a post. There's deletes, there's gets. And I'm basically about blind trying to read this, so hopefully you're okay. But date, time, the name of the file, the CEF0 Broadcom TDM1, and this is the file name minus, whatever that name was in the log file. And then severity, user, yada, 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 and then message. So anyway, and if you look, all these right here, believe it or not, and that fast, went through all those logs and did it. But let's just put one more piece to the pudding. So we'll move that one to the trash, or I could always rename it. And let's go back down into our code, and we're going to change our info. Where's our main one? It's not that one. I'll probably have it collapsed. So let's see, header, string. Yeah. Oops, let me put a breakpoint. So instead of doing info, so I think all the defaults are info, debug, and error. So let's say I do debug because it's pretty big. And it's not as big as info, I don't think. But see, it's already done. And there's debug. Okay, so it's really cool like that. Let's do one more. Move to trash. I want to do error. So let's grab this. And again, I kind of cheat with my regex. I don't put the back one because I don't always know if there's a space in there, right? So let's do error. And truthfully is you could get smarter and do, where you don't care about the caps and all that stuff. But this was just a quick and dirty way of doing it. All right, so, and that's all the errors I have. So it's kind of cool. So validation failed. The version ID is not available for the project. Whatever, let's say publish, JDBC connection fail, and here's the stored procedure call fail. So anyway, the ultimate thing is when you look at a log file, I have it highlighted, these are the rules: date and time, log level, thread name, that was the name I couldn't think of, and if there's a user, a method, an API, and then the message itself. So I kind of hope this helps. If nothing else, it helps you to understand the logs a little bit better. And this isn't really hard to write. Again, this is a video, so you can always just pause the video. And it's just one script. Unlike most applications, this is just a script. And I'm using regex, and that's about it. So I hope this was helpful.